Ghana has partnered with the US aid agency for more than 2 decades and benefited from funding to support governance, economic reforms, as well as helping address its long-standing problems in electricity distribution. Analysts warn the funding cut sends a strong signal about Ghana's debt challenges, with potential consequences for electricity reliability and investment. Reliable and stable electricity supply is the engine of growth for many factories and businesses across Ghana. For the country's power to be sustainable, the West African nation depends on external support like the United States government-backed agency, Millennium Challenge Corporation or MCC funding, to support its operations. However, a funding cut for next year threatens major reforms within Ghana's energy sector. Analysts say the latest move reflects deeper economic challenges in the country.
Ghana's public finances are challenged, severely challenged. And we're just coming out of a horrendous crisis that started in 2022, peaked in 23, and kind of stabilized in 2024. Our finances are still not good.
Ghana's debt stock stands at more than $55 billion as of September, according to government's data. The country's high debt levels have pushed it into defaulting payments to creditors. For nearly 4 years, the government has been undertaking domestic and external debt restructuring programs backed by the IMF to address the situation. Still, the US government-backed agency, MCC, has declared Ghana ineligible for funding in 2026, citing a debt default restriction under US legislation.
Some institutions hadn't been paid. And this, you can't have access to this fund if you have defaulted in paying your debts or you have defaulted in paying US companies.
The suspended funds were meant to support reforms aimed at improving electricity distribution and service delivery across the country. Energy experts warn the impact could be felt far beyond government offices, reaching small businesses and communities that depend on reliable power to survive.
We will not be able to have that kind of private sector participation that we are envisaging, or the thing that this third compartment is supposed to play out, especially in the distribution sector of the power sector, which is that is being headed by the ECG. We are not going to see that kind of massive improvement or structural adjustment within the shortest period.
The government, however, says efforts are underway to keep power distribution reforms on track, even without MCC support. But for consumers, the concern is whether stalled reforms could translate into higher tariffs, more frequent outages, or delayed connections, because these pressures largely affect SMEs and low-income households. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
All right, then let's revisit our earlier story in Ghana, where energy sector reform programs are facing an interesting challenge that comes in the wake of the Millennium Challenge Corporation effectively rolling back its funding, and that puts at least $190 million in suspended funding at risk. Let's explore the details of what that means for the West African economy. Dr. Daniel Amartey is an economist with the Policy Initiative for Economic Development. He's joining us live on the program tonight. Dr. Amartey, thank you for your time this evening. So according to the MCC, Ghana can't get any credit due to the debt default restriction pending a debt restructuring agreement. Is that in reference to the wider debt restructuring program that the country ran after the default in December 2022?
Yes, certainly so. You know, when we started the process of engaging our bilateral and multilateral creditors in terms of, restructuring our debt, because the debt status has gone to a point where it became practically impossible for government to be able to meet repayment obligation. Okay, and then when the news came, my view was that government should quickly approach the authorities in the United States to explain to them that we have initiated processes to renegotiate our debt with external creditors. And as it stands now, we had a certain significant degree of success in terms of debt renegotiation with bilateral, multilateral partners. So my view is that it would be very appropriate to go and have a dialogue with them and see if it will be possible. If not, we benefited from $190 million. Maybe probably they could give us certainty. But to answer you in a very simplistic manner, certainly so. It is as a result of our debt restructuring that started somewhere in 2022 last year.
So this
2022.
So let's talk about this $190 million credit line. Where else could the current administration raise that sum? At least if the main restrictions we're working with here is a long tenor and an interest rate of at least below 5%, because that's essentially concessional debt that we would be looking at.
Yes, certainly it's a very huge challenge for the government. But the Honorable Finance Minister indicated in the 2026 budget that they will be resorting to domestic bond market to see how they will be able to raise some money for the energy sector. Also, there's going to be a further negotiation with bilateral and multilateral partners. Of course, the government is likely to be knocking at the door of African Development Bank as well as the World Bank and other bilateral partners to assist in that particular direction. Capital market is not too good at the moment because our position is not too good to be able to get a very good rate if we should restore to the capital market. And then also, at the beginning of this year, government also hinted to the citizens that he may be calling on the citizens to contribute their quota. As it stands now, if you buy a gallon of petrol, every citizen, as soon as you buy a gallon of petrol, you pay a cedi towards the energy debt recovery. So these are initiatives initiated by the Honorable Finance Minister in an attempt to salvage the energy sector for our inability to, assess this particular facility from the Millennium Challenge Corporation.
Couldn't Ghanaian taxpayers also say, look, there's plenty of other places where spending and waste could potentially be cut? I know the finance minister has spoken in the past, for example, about cutting spending on the National Cathedral program, which has already taken out around $60 million of taxpayer money. Are there other places in the fiscus where money could be cut or redirected into these critical energy reforms?
Yeah, I agree, certainly. So one of the strategies by this government and by the Honorable Minister, Dr. Ato Forson, is to have a very strict fiscal discipline and also value for money projects. Okay, just like you indicated, they put a halt to the National Cathedral project. And the idea is that whatever money that the nation is serving could be invested into the energy sector and other rich sectors of the economy to be able to anchor the economy. Another area which government is also considering is about efficiency within the energy sector. Okay, so we are gradually moving away from the post-paid mechanism where you consume power before you pay. Now we are heading towards prepaid. You pay before you consume. And even at the various ministries, they've been advised, ECG has been advised to ensure that they give them prepaid meters. So these are some of the ways by which they want to block the waste and the inefficiency in the system and the kind of illegal connections so that government will be able to mobilize sufficient resources to pay the debt that is outstanding now. So these are some of the initiatives outlined by the Honorable Minister. And we trust that if this is implemented, okay, we should be able to adequately deal with the energy sector debt without the 190 million expected from the United States. But if we should have that, that will further give government more fiscal space to be able to focus on more critical aspects of the economy by, stabilizing the economy and then now projecting growth for the development of the country.